Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Crowd Chair Podcast. Today is actually the last and final week of Bubble Watch. We've done a lot of Bubble Watch videos before. I actually made one last week, but I wasn't able to upload it before I went on vacation. So what you're actually seeing right now for all these, I'll say the same thing for the should be in and the work to do sections when I do those. Um, but this is actually the same thing from a week ago. And so well, it's the same thing from a week ago because I did it last week. I just never uploaded the video. So this is all the exact same stuff. Now, a lot has happened. A lot of teams who are teeter tottering that line of should be in, could be in, have all made some moves and have all been upgraded. A lot of teams have, I think, put themselves in this category, so this lock section is going to look a lot different than it does right now. So we start with the ACC, which has Virginia and Miami, Florida currently at the time being. I guess you could maybe flip Miami with Virginia, but this is really pretty even. Um, but there's one more team that's going to join from the locked section from the ACC, and that team is none other than the Duke Blue Devils. Duke has been pretty solid towards the end of the season here, and they have played well enough, and they have locked themselves into a tournament spot, now ranked in the top 25 this week. Finished the season off with another win against top rival UNC in North Carolina. So the Duke Blue Devils gotta be feeling pretty good about themselves after that win. Also with some other wins before then, also being NC State. This Duke team went undefeated at home for the entire season in Jon Scheyer's first season as head coach. Duke has played good enough. They're a lock for the tournament, and they could be a very dangerous team in March. Moving on to the Big 12, obviously, these five from the Big 12 have been mainstays in this locked section, and they remain as mainstays in this locked section. But I dropped Iowa State out the last time that I actually did. And that was the only change I made in locks was I dropped out Iowa State, or I think I had San Diego State too. But I dropped out Iowa State because they had kept losing. Well, they end up actually beating Baylor. And so I am putting them back in the locks section here. And I'm putting Texas ahead of Baylor after they beat Kansas. So this is the rankings now for the Big 12. Iowa State is back in as a lock after getting that big win against Baylor. Huge win for them, especially, I'm pretty sure that game was on the road, or maybe it was at home. But either way, beating Baylor, outstanding win for Iowa State. That gets them back in locks here, even at 18-12. Iowa State, I still think, is a lock for the tournament. They'll have another shot at Baylor in the Big 12 tournament. Obviously, none of these teams have any work to do in their conference tournaments, but it's always nice to get that automatic lock and have some bragging rights. But we go to the Big East, which had Marquette, Xavier, and I believe I added UConn the last time, or maybe I didn't. But those three were already locks for the Big East, and well, we're going to add two more to the mix. Now, I am making a lot of changes, but a lot of these teams are teeter-tottering the line for a while, and most of them have just either had work to do, teams lose and drop out of the mix, or they have just played themselves into the tournament. I think Creighton's one of those teams that is a lock now because there's just not enough teams to knock them out of tournament contention. And another team that I'm considering a lock is Providence. The Providence Friars, well coached by Coach Ed Cooley. Providence is always a tough team and is always a tough out, and they have locked themselves into yet another tournament appearance. Another solid year for the Providence Friars. We go to the Big Ten, where there is a lot of teams who are going to be joining the lock section. Obviously, the Big Ten this year has been well known for all of its middling teams behind Purdue and Indiana. And Indiana was kind of a middling-ish team most of the year, but they picked it up towards the end as they're still ranked, of course, 19th. But these two have really been the top two squads of the Big Ten. We got a lot of newcomers to this category. Let's just start with two of them here, which are right at the top, and that's Illinois and Iowa. Uh, Illinois, the big thing that the Illini have working in their favor is their two enormous wins against two other top teams here in this area, and that's UCLA and Texas. They actually beat both of them during the regular season, giving them, two top 10, well, actually now top 7 wins. So obviously, and both of them on neutral floor, so obviously enormous wins for Illinois over those two huge teams, really good teams as well. Really outstanding wins for Illinois. Within the conference, they've been okay, but really those two wins are the reason they're going to be in the tournament. As for Iowa, they did not beat Purdue either, but they swept the Indiana Hoosiers, destroying them at Assembly Hall. Outstanding win for Iowa. They also had that huge win where they made probably the most, where they probably made the most impressive comeback I've ever seen, or just absolutely, where Michigan State got absolutely embarrassed and ended up winning the game. So that was nice for Iowa. They also, I believe, have a win over. Oh no, wait, I already said that. They also have, I believe, have a win over Illinois, which is another obviously good win. Iowa's got plenty of good wins. They also got non-conference stuff against Clemson as well as Seton Hall, both of which are okay teams. Counts for, especially with Seton Hall on the road. 2 solid wins for Iowa. This is a solid resume. They will be in the NCAA tournament. And yes, there are still 3 more teams. All of them are going to be right here. And that is Maryland, Michigan State, and Northwestern. Yeah, I don't understand how Northwestern is this good either. Don't look at me. I have no idea how in the world Northwestern has played as well as it has, because they have been absolutely outstanding. As for Maryland and Michigan State, I can see those two, but Northwestern, that one came out of absolutely nowhere. Northwestern Wildcats, they had a ugly early loss to the Pitt Panthers, losing at home by 29. And also took a very close loss, of which was a really ugly loss too, because they only scored a combined 85 points when they lost by 1 to Auburn. They do have a win though over Purdue, which obviously beating Purdue is a outstanding thing to do. They also have a win on the road against Michigan State. They beat Illinois. Beat Indiana, as well as beating Iowa. Of course, they got swept by the Wolverines, which isn't very good. But they also swept Wisconsin. Like I said, they actually swept Indiana as well. I forgot to mention that one. But a lot of good wins for this Northwestern team. A good record as well, a 21-10. This Northwestern team is bound for the tournament, and that's crazy to say because this will only be their second ever tournament appearance in program history. So obviously fans over in Evanston have got to be very excited for, well, just another chance at the tournament. Then we go to Maryland Terrapins, who have also played their way into the NCAA tournament. Now they have lost their last 2 to Ohio State and Penn State. So Maryland also did though beat Northwestern right before then. So Maryland is just kind of one of those teams where, there's a lot of other work to do teams who could not get a win, fell out of their positioning, and they're just kind of one of those teams that has benefited from everybody else losing. That's kind of put them here now because there's no one to take their place. Michigan State is sort of the same thing because they didn't really have any good wins to help them towards the end of the year. They just took care of business and beat. Nebraska's been a surging team, so that could help them. but they also beat Ohio State at home, who Ohio State just keeps looking worse and worse. Um, but there's not Michigan State, another one of those teams with a solid resume, solid conference record. One of those billion teams in the 11-12 win range. They're at 11-8. They probably would be at 12-8 if they had played Minnesota. So Michigan State, another team that I'd say, yeah, they've played well. They've done enough to lock themselves into the tournament, along with the rest of the other should be in Big Ten teams that kept just trying to get that last win, but they kept beating up each other. But now at this point, I think all of them are more than fine picks for a tournament spot. May not be like a 6 or a 7, but they're all, well, those two might be 6 or 7. But I think all these teams will be in the tournament when the selection show begins, which is actually now next week. So looking forward to that. Pac 12, believe it or not, still at this point, is still just UCLA and Arizona. There is not a single other team that has yet been able to dethrone these two. They both keep winning. UCLA did beat Arizona, which got them the number 2 in the country. But Pac-12 just remains these two. The rest of this conference just is really a struggle bus. So UCLA, Arizona, they remain the only two really locks in that conference, and really the only two surefire bets to come from that conference, as crazy as that might seem. Then you have Alabama and Tennessee, who will remain from the SEC. And they'll be joined by two more actually. The one I'm only adding because I can't see why the committee is going to leave them out because, well, yes, Kentucky. I don't like Kentucky's team. I never have. But they got some good wins that got them off the bubble. And, Kentucky is just one of those teams that has so much history that if you leave them out, that if there's a really good reason to leave them out, they won't. And since they have so many good wins, I think Kentucky, even though I don't believe they're the greatest team in the world and they don't really have any shot at a tournament championship, in my opinion, uh, I think they'll make the tournament just because of their history and their prowess, which is kind of bogus, but that's kind of how it is. And the other team that we're adding, as you already saw, is Texas A&M. What an end to the season that they had. They had such an unimpressive start to the year. It kind of looked really dangerous for the Aggies. Just not impressive to begin the season, as I believe, if you were to look, to begin the year, they were 6-5 to start the season. And nobody was talking about Texas A&M. So mind you, they were 6-5. Their record now is 23-8, which means that the rest of the season, that after being 6-7, I'm sorry, 6-5. After being 6-5, they went 17-3. That is very impressive, especially since only 2 games were non-conference games. So give all the credit to Texas A&M. Outstanding season for them. As for the miscellaneous category, for all the other teams that have played their way into the tournament, it remains Houston, Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and San Diego State. All these teams still locked for the NCAA tournament and all still very much in position to get themselves really even a top seed. All of them in the NCAA tournament. San Diego State probably going to be the lowest one, but they still should get a decent seed as well. So that is it for the locks category. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, since you saw so many teams in this category, spoiler alert, there's not going to be much to see and it should be in. But you'll see when that category comes. But as I said, that's it for this one. So until next time, adios, everyone.